This is Mrs. Wainwright's math class, Chapter 1, Lesson 8, and Chapter 2, Lesson 1B. Divide by one-digit divisors. Today's learning target: by the end of today's lesson, you should confidently be able to say, I can divide with one-digit divisors. And a quick review: there are 3 correct ways to write a division problem. The first is the horizontal division problem. 8 divided by 2 equals 4. 8 is the dividend, divided by 2, which is the divisor, equals 4, which is the quotient. So we have a dividend, we divide it by a divisor, and we get a quotient. Or, instead of writing a division problem horizontally, we can write it in the division box. For this problem, we would say 8 divided by 2 equals 4. Again, 8 is the dividend, 2 is the divisor, and 4 is the quotient, which is the answer to a division problem. Notice that when we use the division box, we kind of flip it around. The dividend goes inside the box, the divisor goes outside the box, and the quotient goes on top of the box. There's a third way to write a division problem, and that's in fraction form. And for this problem, we would say 8 divided by 2 equals 4. Notice that 8 is the dividend, it's on the top, 2 is the divisor, it's on the bottom, and 4 is the quotient, the answer to our division problem. So this is a good page to look back at to remind yourself of the 3 correct ways to write a division problem. So now we're ready to move on to some long division. And as you will learn in this lesson, long division is all about Mrs. Wainwright and her chocolate bars. For example, number 1, we're given a division problem, 329 divided by 7. If you don't know the fact by heart, you should do long division to solve the problem. When we're going to do long division, we take the horizontal problem as you see here, and we turn it into the division box problem. So we will say at 329 divided by 7. We like to put it in the center of the page, make sure we have some room above it and lots of room below it to complete the problem. And since long division is all about Mrs. Wainwright and her chocolate bars, the first thing we need to do is a setup. You need to give Mrs. Wainwright her chocolate bars or she will haunt you. So make sure you remember to give her chocolate bars. It's very important. It helps to make sure you have the correct number of digits in the correct places in your final answer. How do we give the chocolate bars? Well, we start by looking at the first digit in our dividend. In this case, it's 3. And we say, is that first digit greater than or equal to the divisor? So in this case, is 3 greater than or equal to 7? If the answer is yes, that would be our first chocolate bar. But 3 is not greater than 7 and it's not equal to 7. So our answer is not yes. So if the answer is no, like it is here, then we look at the first 2 digits in the number. 3, 2 is 32. So that number 32, we ask the question again. Is 32 greater than or equal to the divisor? Is 32 greater than or equal to 7? Yes, 32 is greater than 7. So that means our first chocolate bar will go over that 2. And after we get that first chocolate bar, every digit after that gets a chocolate bar. So notice my 3 was not greater than or equal to 7, so it did not get a chocolate bar. I tried the first 2 digits together, which is the number 32. 32 is greater than 7, so the 2 got the first chocolate bar, and every digit after that got a chocolate bar. There was only 1 digit after the 2, that was the 9. So this is a 2 chocolate bar answer, which means when you're done with this problem, this should be a 2-digit answer. So giving Mrs. Wainwright her chocolate bars is the first part of her setup. The next part of her setup is writing down all of the initials for the following saying. And in our class, these are the steps for remembering how to do long division. Does Mrs. Wainwright savor, which means taste, chocolate, bars regularly, which means all the time? And the answer to that question is certainly. So we remember how to do long division by, does Mrs. Wainwright save her chocolate bars regularly? Certainly. Every time I do a long division problem, I write down the first letter of each of this statement. So I put a D for does, M for Mrs. Wainwright, S for saver, C for chocolate, B for bars, R for regularly, C for certainly. Does Mrs. Wainwright save her chocolate bars regularly? Certainly. Underline the B and put an arrow from the B to the D, because these steps help you to remember. So what do these steps mean? Does, or D, means divide. Mrs. Wainwright, or M, means multiply. Saver, or S, means subtract. Chocolate, or C, means compare. That's the most important step. People skip it all the time, and that's how they make mistakes. Bars, or B, means bring down, and every time we bring down, we underline. And regularly, or R, means remainder. Finally, certainly, or C, means circle, because we always circle our final answer. So we have, does Mrs. Wainwright save her chocolate bars regularly? Certainly. Divide, multiply, subtract, compare, bring down, remainder, circle the final answer. And every time I do a long division problem, I write down the initials for my steps for long division on the left-hand side. Does Mrs. Wainwright save her chocolate bars regularly? Certainly. Underline the B and put an arrow from the B to the D. Now, these steps are helpful to some and distracting to others. However, you can't just automatically say to me, well, these steps are distracting, because lots of times kids will say that and then they still never learn how to divide. So, we're going to follow these steps, and if you feel that they're distracting and you can divide very well without them, you'll do the same thing we always do. See one of the teachers. We'll give you 3 to 4 of our examples. If you get them all right your way, we will allow you to do this without using the steps. But you have to get it approved by us first. Okay, so we have both parts of the setup. We have the chocolate bars and the steps. So we're ready to go ahead and do our first step, which I see as the letter D. That means divide. I'll be using my divisor of 7 and seeing how many times it goes into every digit up to and including the first chocolate bar. So that number is 32. 7 goes into 32 how many times? Let's use my fingers and go through my 7 times tables till I get to a number that's too high. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35. Oops, stop, that's too high. Put one finger down, and how many fingers do I have left up? That's right, 4. So I put a 4 on top of my first chocolate bar, and I check off divide. Now I know what the next step that I'm up to, which is M. M stands for multiply. I take the number that I just wrote down, which is 4, and multiply it by my divisor, which is 7. 4 times 7 is 28. I multiplied. My next step, S, means subtract. So I'll put a subtraction sign and an equal bar. You must put the subtraction sign and the equal bar in the problem when you're showing work. That is required for everyone. I'm ready to subtract. I cannot do 2 minus 8, so I have to borrow. Cross out the 3, make it a 2. This 2 turns into a 12. 12 minus 8 is 4. 2 minus 2 is 0, so I won't bother putting that down. I just subtracted, so I dotted off. My next step, C, very important step, is compare. If I compare, I catch my errors very often before I finish the whole problem, and that's important. So in order to compare, I always ask the same sentence. Is the number that I just wrote down less than my divisor? If the answer is yes, I'm on the right track, and I keep going. But if the answer is no, I did not divide properly, and I have to go back and fix my division from the previous step. So we're up to C, compare. And we say the question, is 4 less than 7? Yes. Perfect. I compared and it compared well. B stands for bring down. Is there a number to bring down? Yes, there is. There's a 9. Take the time and use the arrow to bring it down so you know that it's already been brought down. Again, a 2-second step that makes a big, big deal in helping you to get the answer correct. So I bring down the 9 and check off bring down. After I bring down, I underline my new number because that's the number I'll be dividing into. And if I bring down, I follow that arrow back up to divide, so I'm ready to divide again. My divisor 7 will go into the entire new number on the bottom that I just underlined. So 7 goes into 49 how many times? 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49. Perfect. When it's perfect, I do not put a finger down, so you should have 7 fingers up, and that's your number. My next step is to multiply. I take what I just wrote down, which is a 7, times my divisor, which is 7, and 7 times 7 is 49. I multiplied, so I check it off. S means subtract, subtraction sign and equal bar. 49 minus 49 is 0. I subtracted, so I check it off. C means compare, and I ask the question, is the bottom number 0 less than my divisor 7? So is 0 less than 7? Yes. Good. You want the answer to be yes. Next step, B means bring down. Is there anything to bring down? No, there is not. So I'll put a little X. Once there's nothing to bring down, I move past the B to the R. R means remainder. Is there a remainder? Well, it looks like my remainder is 0. And if a remainder is 0, we ignore it. So I'm going to X out remainder because there really isn't one. It's a 0. And C stands for circle your final answer. You have to circle your final answer in a division problem because when we teachers are checking it, there are a lot of numbers all over the place, and we need to know that you know which of those numbers is the final answer. I've found the final answer. I've circled it. Please stop and complete worksheet number 1 right now, following the steps shown in the lesson. Remember, you can go back to this problem in the lesson and do it step by step with me. Okay, let's move this long division to the next level with example number 2. We have 467, which is a 3-digit dividend divided by 4. Again, I don't know this fact by heart, so I'm going to do long division. And in order to do long division, I have to transfer this horizontal division problem into a division box. So I say 467 divided by 4. Notice how I spread my numbers out nicely because it makes a big difference for neatness and not squishing things in and lining them up properly when I'm solving long division. Now I have to do the first 2 parts of my setup because they're all about chocolate, and if I don't, my teacher will haunt me. So I take a look at my first digit in my dividend and say 4. Is 4 greater than or equal to my divisor? Well, 4 is equal to 4, so yes it is. And if the answer is yes, that digit gets a chocolate bar. Once you find the first chocolate bar, every digit after that gets a chocolate bar. So that tells me that this final answer will be a 3-digit answer. Next part of my setup is write down my steps for long division. Does Mrs. Wainwright savor chocolate bars regularly? Certainly. Underline the B, put an arrow from the B to the D. Now we're ready to go ahead and divide. And we will take our divisor 4 and try and divide it into the digits all the way up to and including the first chocolate bar. So 4 has to go into 4. 4 up, perfect. I have 1 finger up. So that's a 1. I just divided, so I check it off. And the next step is M, which is multiply. 1 times 4 is 4. Check off multiply. My next step is subtract, so I put a subtraction sign and an equal bar, then I go ahead and subtract. 4 minus 4 equals 0. Check off subtract. Next step C, compare. I ask the question, is 0 less than 4? Yes. Good, that's the answer I want. B means bring down. Is there anything to bring down? Yes, there is. Use the arrow and bring down your 6. I just brought down, so I underline my new dividend, and 4 is going to divide into 6 next. So since I brought down, I go back and divide. 4 has to go into 6. Let's use my fingers. 4, 8, up too high, put one finger down. My answer is 1. I just divided. What's my next step? M means multiply. Whatever I just wrote down, 1 times my divisor. 1 times 4 is 4. I multiplied. Subtract, put a minus sign and an equal bar. Go ahead and subtract. 6 minus 4 is 2. 0 minus nothing is 0. So I subtracted. Very important step. Don't skip it. Compare. What's the question? Is 2 less than 4? Yes. Fantastic. Most often you'll be on the right track and your answer will be yes, but sometimes it will be a no, and that will remind you that you have to stop and check your previous division. Okay, I'm up to the letter B, which stands for bring down. Is there anything to bring down? Yes, there is. I have not yet brought down the 7, and I know I have not brought it down because there's no arrow underneath it. So there we go. I bring down the 7. Let's check off bring down. So underline and go back and divide. 4 has to go into 27. Let's go through my 4 times tables and use my fingers. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. Stop. Put my finger down because that was too high. I have 6 fingers left, so my number is 6. I just divided, so I check it off. My next step is multiply, and 6 times 4 is 24. I multiplied, so I check it off. Subtract, subtraction sign and equal bar. 7 minus 4 is 3. 2 minus 2 is 0. I subtracted. Compare. What's the question? Is 3 less than 4? Yes. Super. Next step is to bring down, but I have nothing to bring down, so I'll X it out. My next step is remainder. Is there a remainder? Yes, there is. So the remainder is 3. I write it by my answer and dot it off after I've done that. I'm up to the C for circle. I circle my final answer, which includes my whole number and my remainder within that circle. I dot it off, and once I dot off the C, I am done. Please stop and complete worksheet number 2 right now, following the steps shown. Go back to this lesson if you like. And let's take a look at my final example. For number 3, I have 6,153 divided by 2. Again, it brings it to the next level because this is a 4-digit dividend. It's not harder, it just takes a little longer. So I certainly don't know 6,153 divided by 2, which means I need long division. For long division, I have to flip it around and put it inside the division box in the center of my page. So I have 6,153 divided by 2. When I'm doing long division, I don't put the commas inside the dividend of my division box. I put them in at the end of my final answer. Notice I gave myself lots of space between my numbers so I can keep it nice and neat and even and lined up. Okay, I have to do chocolate bars. So, I look at my first digit in my dividend, 6. Is 6 greater than or equal to 2? Yes, it is. So it gets a chocolate bar. Once I find my first chocolate bar, every digit after that gets a chocolate bar. Therefore, this final answer will be a 4-digit final answer. Next part of my setup are my steps for long division. Does Mrs. Wainwright savor chocolate bars regularly? Certainly. Underline the B, put an arrow from the B to the D. Okay, my setup is done. I'm ready to divide. I'm going to say 2 goes into 6 because that's my first chocolate bar. 2, 4, 6. Perfect. I have 3 fingers up, so my answer is 3. I divided. Check it off. M stands for multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. I multiplied. Check it off. S stands for subtract. 6 minus 6 is 0. I subtracted. Check it off. C stands for compare. What's the question? Is 0 less than 2? Yes. Great. B stands for bring down. Is there anything to bring down? Yes, I have to bring down this 1. Once I bring down, I underline because that's the new number I'll be dividing into. And if I bring down, I go back and divide. So 2 is going to go into 1. Let's go through my 2 times tables. 2 up, 2 high. Put my finger down. My answer is, oh, I don't have any fingers up. Well, what number is nothing? That's right, it's 0. So you can have a 0 as one of your digits in your answer, or as one of the digits on the chocolate bar. So I divided because 2 goes into 1 0 times. Multiply 0 times 2 is 0. Subtract 1 minus 0 is 1. Check it off. Compare. What's your question? Is 1 less than 2? Yes, it is. Perfect. Is there anything to bring down? Well, I can see that the next digit I have to bring down is the 5. Use my arrow and bring it down. Once I bring down, I underline because I'm going to go back and divide, and this is the number I'll be dividing into. So 2 has to go into 15. Let's use my fingers and go through my 2 times tables. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Stop. 2 high. Put 1 finger down. I have 7 fingers up, so that's my answer. 7. I just divided. Check it off. Multiply. 7 times 1 is 14. Write it down. Check off multiply. S stands for subtract. Put a subtraction sign and an equal bar. 15 minus 14 is 1. I subtracted. Check it off. My next step is C, compare, so I ask myself the question, is 1 less than 2? Yes. Fantastic. Check off compare. B stands for bring down. Is there anything to bring down? Yes, there is. I still have that 3 left. Use an arrow and bring it down. Once I bring down, I can dot it off, and I'm going to underline because I'm going to go back and divide. And 2 will divide into that new underlined number of 13. So let's use my fingers and go through my 2 times tables. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, up 2 high. Put 1 finger down. I have up 6 fingers, so that's my answer to the division. Check off divide. M stands for multiply. 6 times 2 is 12. S stands for subtract. 13 minus 12 is 1. C stands for compare. What's the question? Is 1 less than 2? Yes. Beautiful. B stands for bring down. Is there anything to bring down? No. R stands for remainder. Is there a remainder? Yes, the remainder is 1. I have to write it down up top. Dot off remainder. C stands for circle. Circle my final answer, which includes my remainder. Dot off C. And now that I know that I'm done. My remainder does not at all count for my commas. Only my whole number does. I see that my whole number here is more than a 3-digit number, so I'm going to count backwards for my commas. If you don't have room on the bottom, you could dot it on top, which I'll do because most often I won't have room. 1, 2, 3, comma. So 3,076 remainder 1 is the answer to 6,153 divided by 2. Please stop and complete worksheet number 3 right now, following the steps shown. So a quick review of this lesson. There are three ways to write division. The horizontal way, dividend divided by divisor equals quotient. On the right side, the division box format, dividend inside the box, divisor outside the box, quotient above the box. Or the fraction format, which is the dividend on top of the fraction, divisor on the bottom of the fraction, and answer after the equal sign. The steps to remember long division are: does Mrs. Wainwright save her chocolate bars regularly? Underline the B, arrow from the B to the D. D stands for divide, M stands for multiply, S stands for subtract. C stands for compare, where we ask the question, is the bottom number less than the divisor? B stands for bring down, and we use an arrow. After we bring down, we underline the new number and go back and divide. R stands for remainder, and C stands for circle. And remember, division is all about Mrs. Wainwright and her chocolate bars, so make sure before you start your long division problems, you give Mrs. Wainwright her chocolate bars and do your setup with your steps. Good luck with this lesson.